Welcome back to Garden Dreams and Other Things, and here we are in April when everything starts to come back to life in the garden. It's one of my favorite times of the year when I'm out in the garden to see all the things that are springing up. And one of the first things that I saw was the daffodils and the tulips. Last year, I decided to take one of the small gardens that's in a circular shape and put the bulbs in the fall. I planted the bulbs, the daffodil bulbs, all the way around the perimeter of it to see if I could get a pretty border. And it really came out really well. I didn't see any problem areas. I did see other daffodil plants come up where I had forgotten that I had planted them in that garden. So I'll be moving those to form a solid border around that garden next year. And each year it's going to be prettier as they get fuller and fuller and add more to the blooms that you're going to see each spring. I had some tulips. This I apparently don't do well with tulips for some reason. I decided I was going to put them in pots, and I do have a few that bloomed in the garden, and they were beautiful. But they've been there for years. They pop up here and there because I forget where I have planted them. But they're beautiful. But for some reason, when I planted these tulips in the pots, I don't know if I waited too late to get them in the pots. They just did not do well. The bloom came up about just about 2 inches from the leaves and bloomed then and really didn't come into the full size of what tulips usually look like. So I don't know if it's just the fact that it's the first time they're blooming or I did something wrong in the process. So I'm going to be pulling those out and putting them into the garden as opposed to putting them in the pots and see how they do next year. And I'll probably plant them right behind those daffodils that I have in the round garden. So I'm going to give that a try. And the other thing that I saw come into color was pansies that I had planted in the fall. I only had a few, and I put them in the front area of the house, and they were the first things that brought color into the garden as soon as winter passed away, and really beautiful. And what I realize now is that I need to plant a lot more in the fall so that I'll have that first flush of color in the front garden. I'm also going to, there's an area around the wall that I'm going to follow the same thing that I did with the circular garden. Is I'm going to go in and plant daffodils and plant tulips so that that will be already full with color before I even touch that area as soon as spring arrives. And so then that means less work for me, and then I get color earlier in the season. The other thing that I love to see is the ferns and the hostas. And the great thing about these things of daffodils, that all of these that I've mentioned, is that these are the ones that if you do all the work now, if you do the work in the fall, then you just get to enjoy the beauty of it in the spring because all the work's been done and the rest is left up to the plants and how they do. And then you can just go in and clear out the area around, pull the weeds out. So it's another way of bringing the workload down so that I'm not having to come up with a new idea of what flowers I'm going to put in for spring, that they're already there and they're going to come up. And then that gives me more time to think about what I can put in the summer when all of those die down. So I'm going to be doing that throughout the whole property. And I'm looking forward to see, once I get all that, to see all the color all over the property in early spring. Hostas, of course, are great because they add that where you get with the other plants, you get the colors, you get the beautiful green in the garden. Where when spring first comes, it looks pretty barren and pretty brown, but as soon as those hostas come up, they grow pretty fast and fill up the area and give a beautiful green even before you get your colors of your plants that bloom in spring. The azaleas are now just starting to bloom. The white azalea especially is the first one that comes into the garden. And after that is the pink. And I look forward to seeing those every year. Those are the ones that Mom planted. It always reminds me of her when I'm out in the garden. And the dogwood, of course, was beautiful this year. Beautiful white blooms. And I was happy to see that. We had a pretty dry spring. We haven't had much rain. And so I've had to go out and water earlier this year as opposed to how it was last year. The other thing that happened is that I had planted some irises that I got from an iris festival here in Greenville, Tennessee, and I had one that bloomed early, and it's really a odd one. It's beautiful, but it's tiny, and I'm not sure if it's a dwarf iris or if it's just since it's the first bloom, maybe that's why it's small. But it's really pretty, and I'm looking forward to see that year after year as it grows and multiplies to fill in that area of the garden. So those are the things that I've really enjoyed looking at as I go through the garden in early spring. And now what I want to talk to you about is the reconstruction. And this is going to be a big deal, and it's going to take a long time to do it. And I'm trying to work as smart and as affordable as I can, because I don't want it to take too long to accomplish. But I am going into the first area that I'm working in is the largest area of the garden where Mom spent most of her time. So I'm going to take you outside and talk to you about the areas that I'm working on, and just take you around the garden, and so I can show you what I'm doing. So let's get into it. Hey, before we get into the reconstruction of the back garden, I wanted to share this with you. And I was out paying bills and having to go by the plant nursery, of course, and saw that they had rhododendrons on sale. But not only that, I found one that has the exact color that Mother used to have. And it sat here in this part of the garden. It was about 5 feet tall by about 6 feet wide, and she loves sitting on the front porch in a rocking chair, looking at the blooms. And so I'm excited to get this back in the garden to where the old one was, and I'll be able to sit in her rocking chair and look at the flowers as the bush grows and blooms each and every year. So, oh yeah, and this is the color. Well, here we are in the back garden. This was Mother's favorite place to be in the summertime when it was hot. She had made this a shade garden. It's the largest garden that she has on the property. It's a small lot, but you'd be amazed of how much stuff that you can plant on a small lot. But this is the one that she had worked on for years, and at the time when it was at its peak, we had 3 ornamental plum trees that were towards the back of this garden and provided shade for the whole area. And year after year, she would add flowers and plants and bushes to that, and she just loved being in there. She had an arbor that you could go through to get into this section, and a small grassy area towards the middle. So right now, it doesn't look like much of anything. At the time that when the trees fell, I had to clear them all out and pull as many shade plants as I could out of there and put them into the other areas of the property to make sure that I could keep as much as I could. And then the ones that could handle full sun, I've left them in the garden. The azaleas seem to be doing okay, and some of the others that she had on the outer edge of the garden, she would put the ones that required full sun, so I could keep those in the garden. So now I want to talk to you about the grand plan, what I want to do with this area, and I'm doing it with her in mind, and with the also the thing that of doing it with the things that I enjoy having in the garden, and what I want to see in the future. So the inspiration for this garden now, as I'm going to rebuild it, is from the 4 elements of water and fire, earth, and wind. And so I'm going to divide this part of the back of the property into 4 sections. So as I begin in this first section that you see is just a pile of dirt right now, but I brought in the dirt so that I could level out the area. This is going to be the area that's going to feature water. So I've got an idea in mind for an affordable water feature that's about 2 feet by 6 feet in diameter, and it's something that I can just place instead of digging a hole and putting it deep in the ground. I'm going to set it on top of the ground, and that will allow me to put in water plants that I enjoyed. Mother used to have a water garden that was close to the house, so this is taking her in mind, but also being a part of what's going to be to describe the element of water for the garden. And I wanted it to be close to this area so that as you walk from the grass in, that's the first thing that you're going to walk by is the water feature. And that is all for this section. These are plants from the previous section, I went in to narrow the garden a little bit to make it more manageable because it was so large. And I spent a lot of time out here trying to keep things under control, but I had sections of the garden I couldn't even get to. For years, we would just let it grow. Whatever could grow there would grow, the ferns, and so I'm trying to clear all those areas out. So that's the first section. The second section is to symbolize the fire, and this is an area that it's going to, Mother had a grassy area here, so I'm keeping that in mind, that this is also going to be a grassy area, but in the center of that is going to be these honeycomb shaped blocks that I have here, that's going to create a space where if I want to put the fire pit here, so that I can burn stuff in the fall and we can sit out here while it's burning, we could do that. Or I have the option of putting plants here. I could put a table and chair here. So it provides a solid foundation. And I love the shape of these because they're octagonal. They remind me of the honeycomb for bees, and I thought that was quite appropriate for the garden. So you'll have that, you'll have the green, and then around the perimeter of the green, the grass, you're going to see a section of the garden that's about 2 feet wide that's going to go all the way around. And in that, I'm going to put perennials. There'll be daffodils, there'll be tulips, there'll be other plants that are going to fill in that whole area. And as the season goes, as spring comes, it will be full of color around the green grass that you see here. And then in the summer, I'm going to try to set up plants that are going to bloom in the summer, so that through each of the seasons of spring, summer, and fall, you're going to see some color that's going to be around this area. And I've provided enough area now so that it can be, so that the family can come out here and sit. So that is the section for the element of fire. The third one is going to be earth. And so for this section, what I'm going to be doing my produce garden in this section. So the big dream as time goes on and money comes in is I'm going to put a small greenhouse here to one side, a shed to the other. Right now I have a section that's dedicated for wildflowers. So this is my first year doing wildflowers. So testing that out to see if that's going to go well, but that's going to be the center of that section for the element of earth, and it's all oriented towards produce. And I'm looking forward to seeing that greenhouse in there. It's going to help me a lot with plants that I'm going to be growing early spring, and having a shed to put everything that I have that I work in with the garden. So that is for the third section. And then for the final is wind. Now you may be saying, what on earth are you going to connect with wind with plants? Well, what I want to do is a small area where there's going to be dwarf trees and bushes. I want to create like a forest-like area. I say a forest, but it's a small area. But it gives you that sense of walking through the forest, as I like to do when I go hiking up in the mountains. So it'll be packed full of plants and trees and bushes, so that it will be 100% shade, and they'll have a little trail that you could walk through around just to be in there and hear the sound of the wind going through the trees. And that's where I made the connection, is that when I would go up hiking in the mountains, I loved hearing the sound of the wind blowing through the trees. So that is the big plan. I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but it doesn't matter, because the fun part is building the garden one step at a time. And I'm sure that I'll have to modify and change it as time goes on, depending on budget or depending on inspiration. But the general idea is to do the 4 elements and set the garden up that way. And eventually, as I'm adding trees also to this section here. So my goal here is for this garden to be part shade. The garden to the back will be full shade. And that is the big dream. So just keep following with me on my YouTube channel, and you'll see the progress that I'm going to make. And we'll see you next time on Garden Dreams and Other Things.